I was sitting in the courthouse hallway when my husband walked past me with his new girlfriend. He stopped, looked down at me, and said with a smirk, "You're about to lose everything, Rebecca." Every single thing. His girlfriend laughed, twirling the diamond necklace I'd paid for around her finger. I didn't say a word. I just smiled. Because what Marcus didn't know was that for the past 8 months, I'd been documenting everything. And I mean everything. My name is Rebecca Chen. I'm 34 years old, and I'm a forensic accountant. For the last decade, I've helped lawyers uncover financial fraud in corporate cases. I've traced hidden assets through shell companies in the Cayman Islands. I've exposed executives who embezzled millions. I've testified in federal court against white-collar criminals who thought they were untouchable. But I never thought I'd have to use those skills against my own husband. Let me take you back to where this all started. Back to the night that changed everything. It was a Thursday in March, cold and rainy. The kind of night where the wind throws water against the windows like it's angry at the world. I was home alone, which had become normal. Marcus, my husband of 7 years, had been working late almost every night for the past 6 months. At least, that's what he told me. I was curled up on the sofa with a cup of chamomile tea, wearing my old college sweatshirt and yoga pants, going through some case files for work. My laptop was balanced on my knees, spreadsheets glowing in the dim light of the living room. I loved my work. Numbers made sense. They didn't lie. They didn't pretend to be something they weren't. You could always trace them back to the truth if you knew where to look. Marcus came home around midnight. I heard his key in the lock, heard him stumbling slightly in the entryway. He was drunk. Not falling down drunk, but that loose, careless drunk where people say things they normally keep hidden. I heard him on the phone in the hallway, his voice low, but not quite low enough. "Baby, I can't talk now. I'm home." A pause. "No, she's probably asleep. She goes to bed early like an old woman." He laughed, that mean laugh I'd started hearing more often lately. "Tomorrow night, I promise. I'll tell her I have a client dinner. She never questions it anymore. She's too wrapped up in her stupid spreadsheets to notice what's happening right in front of her face." I sat perfectly still on the sofa, tea growing cold in my hands. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears, but I didn't move. I didn't confront him. I just listened. I know. Just a few more months and I'll file for divorce. My lawyer says we should wait until after the business deal closes. Then I'll have the company valuation locked in at the lower amount, and she won't be able to touch the real value. She's smart with numbers, but she's stupid about people. She has no idea. Another pause. "Love you too, Sienna. See you tomorrow." He ended the call and walked into the living room. I was still sitting there, frozen, staring at my laptop screen without seeing it. My mind was racing, but my face was completely blank. Years of sitting across from hostile witnesses and depositions had taught me how to control my expression. "You're still up?" Marcus said, walking past me toward the kitchen. He didn't look at me. He never really looked at me anymore. "Yeah, just finishing some work," I said. My voice sounded normal, calm, maybe a little tired. "There's leftover chicken in the fridge if you're hungry." "I ate at the office." He lied smoothly. "I'm going to bed. Don't stay up too late." He disappeared into our bedroom. I heard the shower turn on. I sat there for another 20 minutes, staring at nothing, feeling like the floor had opened up beneath me, and I was falling into empty space. Then, very slowly, something inside me shifted. The shock began to crystallize into something else, something cold and sharp and focused. Marcus thought I was stupid about people. He thought I was too wrapped up in my spreadsheets to notice what was happening. He was planning to manipulate our divorce, to hide assets, to leave me with nothing while he ran off with his mistress. He thought he was smarter than me. He was wrong. I closed my laptop and went to my home office, a small room at the back of our townhouse that Marcus never entered. He called it my number dungeon, with contempt, like the work I did was boring and beneath him. I pulled out a fresh legal pad and wrote across the top, Marcus Chen, Financial Investigation. Then I started making a list of everything I needed to trace: bank accounts, credit cards, investment accounts, business records, property deeds, tax returns, everything. You see, what Marcus didn't understand was that forensic accounting isn't just about numbers. It's about patterns. It's about seeing what doesn't fit, what doesn't make sense, what someone is trying to hide. And after 7 years of marriage, I knew Marcus's patterns better than anyone. I knew when he was lying because his spending changed. I knew when he was hiding something because he became overly cheerful and attentive, trying to distract me. I spent that entire night building a framework for my investigation. I didn't sleep at all. As the sky started to lighten outside my office window, birds beginning their morning songs, I had a plan. A complete, methodical, ruthless plan. And the first step was to act like absolutely nothing had changed. For the next 8 months, I lived a double life. During the day, during evenings, whenever Marcus was around, I was the same Rebecca I'd always been. I cooked dinner. I asked about his day. I smiled and nodded and played the role of the oblivious wife who was too boring and too focused on her career to notice her marriage falling apart. But the moment Marcus left the house, I became someone else entirely. I became a hunter. I started with our joint accounts. We had a checking account where both our paychecks were deposited, a savings account, and a joint credit card. I downloaded every statement from the past 3 years and imported them into a custom spreadsheet. Then I started categorizing every single transaction: groceries, utilities, gas, insurance, mortgage. Normal household expenses went into one column. Everything else went into another column. The column labeled Investigate. What I found made my blood run cold. Over the past 18 months, there had been thousands of dollars in charges to restaurants I'd never been to. Hotels in cities where Marcus claimed he was visiting clients, jewelry stores, women's clothing boutiques, flowers delivered to addresses I didn't recognize. The pattern was crystal clear. Marcus had been having an affair for at least a year and a half. Probably longer. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was the cash withdrawals. Large amounts. 2,000 here, 3,000 there. Always from ATMs, never with an explanation. Over 18 months, he'd withdrawn almost $45,000 in cash from our joint account. Where had that money gone? I needed to find out. I created a separate email address Marcus knew nothing about. Then I started requesting statements from every financial institution I could think of. I knew Marcus's social security number. I knew his mother's maiden name. I knew all the security answers because I was the one who'd set up most of our accounts years ago when we were young and in love, and I trusted him completely. I requested credit reports from all 3 bureaus, and that's when I found them. The secret credit cards. 3 of them. American Express, Visa, MasterCard. All in Marcus's name only, all with billing addresses at a P.O. box I didn't know existed. I filed requests for statements claiming I was the account holder and had lost access to my online login. It took some persistence, some carefully worded calls to customer service, but eventually, I got what I needed. The statements arrived as PDFs to my secret email address. I opened them on my laptop in my office, door locked, heart pounding. What I saw made me feel physically sick. The charges told a story, a complete, detailed story of my husband's affair. Charges to luxury hotels, charges to expensive restaurants, charges to a jewelry store called Tiffany & Company, 3 different times, totaling over $12,000. Charges to a travel agency, 2 tickets to Hawaii, 2 tickets to Miami, 2 tickets to New York. Never had I been invited on any of these trips. But here's what really caught my attention as a forensic accountant. The payments on these secret credit cards were coming from somewhere, and it wasn't from Marcus's salary. His paychecks were deposited into our joint account. I could see exactly how much money he made. So, where was he getting the money to pay off $30,000 in secret credit card debt? I started digging deeper into Marcus's business. He was a commercial real estate broker, partner in a small firm called Chen and Associates. He'd started the company 5 years ago with money borrowed from my parents. Yes, my parents. They'd given us a $100,000 loan to help him start his dream business, and I'd signed the promissory note as a guarantor. The business had done well. At least, that's what Marcus always told me. He said they were closing deals, making commissions, building a client base. He'd paid my parents back over 3 years, and they were proud of him. Proud of us. Proud of what we'd built together. But now I was suspicious of everything. I filed a records request with the Secretary of State's office for all corporate documents related to Chen and Associates. I requested tax returns, which I had a legal right to see since we filed jointly. I requested bank statements for the business accounts. Marcus had always handled the business finances himself, said I didn't need to worry about it, that he had an accountant who took care of everything. I'd trusted him. That was my first mistake. When the corporate documents arrived, I spread them out on my office floor like pieces of a puzzle. The picture they formed was ugly. Marcus's business partner had left the company 2 years ago. I'd known that. What I hadn't known was that Marcus had bought him out using company funds, funds that should have been reported as a distribution on our taxes. They weren't. He'd hidden the transaction. Why? I kept digging. The business bank statements showed regular deposits, commissions from real estate deals. But they also showed something else. Regular transfers to a personal account that wasn't our joint account. An account in Marcus's name only at a completely different bank. $2,000 here, $5,000 there. Over 2 years, he diverted almost $170,000 from the business into this secret personal account. I felt like I was watching a crime unfold in slow motion, frame by frame, transaction by transaction. But I still needed more. I needed to find that secret bank account. I needed to see where all that money had gone. I spent a week trying different banks, calling customer service lines, pretending to be Marcus's assistant, saying I needed to verify an account number for a wire transfer. Most banks wouldn't give me any information. But then I got lucky. A young customer service representative at Wells Fargo, probably new, probably undertrained, confirmed that yes, there was an account in Marcus Chen's name, and would I like to verify the last 4 digits? I made up 4 random numbers. She said, "No, that's not correct. The account ending in 7243. Bingo. I thanked her and hung up. Now I knew where the secret account was, but I still needed to see the statements. That was harder. I couldn't just request them without Marcus finding out. So I waited. I waited for an opportunity. And 3 weeks later, opportunity knocked. Marcus announced he was going to a 3-day real estate conference in Las Vegas. He'd be leaving Thursday morning, back Sunday night. He seemed excited, more excited than he'd been about anything in months. I knew why. Sienna was going with him. "Have a great trip," I told him Thursday morning, kissing his cheek like everything was normal. "Bring me back some slot machine winnings." He laughed. "I'll try. Don't burn down the house while I'm gone." The moment his car pulled out of the driveway, I was on the phone. I called Wells Fargo, asked to speak to a branch manager. When one came on the line, I used my professional voice, my courtroom voice. "Hello, my name is Rebecca Chen. I'm calling about a sensitive matter regarding my husband's account at your bank. I have reason to believe there may be fraudulent activity, and I need to come in and review the account statements. I'm a forensic accountant, and I'm prepared to file a formal complaint if necessary." The manager hesitated. "Ma'am, I'm not sure I can provide that information without the account holder present." "I'm his wife," I said firmly. We filed joint tax returns. I have a legal right to information about his financial activities, particularly if those activities are fraudulent. I can come to your office with our marriage certificate, my ID, and our tax returns. Or I can get a subpoena. Your choice. There was a long pause. Let me see what I can do. Can you come in this afternoon? I was at the Wells Fargo branch by 2 o'clock, armed with documents, marriage certificate, driver's license, last year's tax return with both our signatures. The manager, a middle-aged woman named Patricia, with kind eyes and a firm handshake, met me in a private office. "Mrs. Chen," she said carefully, "I want to help you, but I need to understand the situation. Are you alleging that your husband has committed fraud?" "I'm alleging that my husband has hidden significant assets and diverted marital funds into secret accounts without my knowledge," I said. "I'm a forensic accountant. I've traced over $170,000 from his business account into a personal account at your bank. I need to see where that money went." Patricia studied me for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Wait here." She returned 20 minutes later with a stack of printed statements. "I'm providing these to you because you've demonstrated a legitimate need to know, and because you're listed as a spouse on joint tax returns. But Mrs. Chen, whatever you're planning to do with this information, I strongly suggest you consult with an attorney first." "I will," I promised. "Thank you. You have no idea how much this helps." I took the statements home, spread them across my dining room table, and started to read. What I found was worse than I'd imagined. The secret Wells Fargo account wasn't just receiving diverted business funds. It was also receiving deposits from other sources, cash deposits, thousands of dollars at a time, with no documentation of where the money came from. Deposits from something called Phoenix Investments LLC, a company I'd never heard of, and transfers from yet another account, this one at Chase Bank. How many secret accounts did my husband have? The spending from the Wells Fargo account told the rest of the story. Rent payments to a luxury apartment complex downtown, $1,200 a month for the past 14 months. Marcus was paying for an apartment I knew nothing about. An apartment where, I presumed, his mistress Sienna lived. Utilities for that apartment. Furniture purchases. Groceries delivered to that address. He was literally funding an entire second household. There were also transfers out to investment accounts, stock purchases, cryptocurrency. Marcus was taking marital funds, funds that should have been in our joint accounts, building our future together, and he was secretly investing them in accounts that only had his name on them. He was systematically stealing from me, from us, from our marriage, and moving those assets where I couldn't touch them. Or at least, where he thought I couldn't touch them. I sat at that dining room table until 3 in the morning, building spreadsheets, creating timelines, documenting every transaction. I color-coded everything. Red for provable fraud, orange for suspicious activity, yellow for things that needed more investigation. By the time the sun came up Friday morning, I had a map of my husband's entire financial double life. And I had a plan. I needed a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. I needed someone who understood complex financial cases, someone who wouldn't be intimidated by Marcus's bluster and his expensive attorney. I needed someone who would fight as dirty as he was planning to fight. I called a colleague from work, a woman named Jennifer who'd been through a brutal divorce herself 3 years ago. "Rebecca," she said when I explained why I was calling, "I know exactly who you need. Patricia Morrison. She's a shark. She specializes in high-asset divorces where one spouse is hiding money. She's expensive, but she's worth every penny. I'll send you her number." I called Patricia Morrison's office that afternoon. Her secretary said she was booked for the next 2 months, but I persisted. "Please tell Ms. Morrison that I'm a forensic accountant with evidence of significant marital asset fraud. I have bank statements, corporate documents, and a paper trail showing hidden accounts and diverted funds. I need representation in a divorce, and I need someone who won't back down from a fight." 10 minutes later, my phone rang. This is Patricia Morrison. My secretary says you have evidence of asset fraud. How substantial are we talking? Over $400,000 that I can prove so far, I said. Possibly more if we dig deeper. Come to my office Monday morning, 9 a.m. sharp. Bring everything you have. Patricia Morrison's office was in a glass tower downtown, all steel and modern art and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. She was 50-something, with silver hair cut short, sharp blue eyes, and a handshake like a vice grip. We sat in her conference room, and I laid out my evidence like I was presenting a case to a jury. I'd organized everything into binders. Tab 1 was the joint account statements with suspicious charges highlighted. Tab 2 was the secret credit cards. Tab 3 was the business diversion of funds. Tab 4 was the secret Wells Fargo account. Tab 5 was documentation of the apartment he was renting for his mistress. Tab 6 was evidence of the hidden investment accounts. Patricia went through each binder methodically, making notes in a leather journal. When she finished, she looked up at me with something like respect. Mrs. Chen, in 25 years of practicing family law, I have never seen a client come to me this prepared. This is extraordinary work. You've essentially done the discovery phase before we've even filed for divorce. I'm a forensic accountant, I said simply. This is what I do. Well, you're very good at it. Now let's talk strategy. We talked for 3 hours. Patricia explained that in our state, all assets acquired during the marriage were considered marital property, regardless of whose name was on the account. That meant Marcus's secret accounts, his hidden investments, the apartment he was paying for, all of it was legally half mine. But more than that, Patricia explained something called dissipation of marital assets. Your husband has been spending marital funds on his extramarital affair, she said. The rent for the mistress's apartment, the jewelry, the trips. All of that is dissipation. The court can order him to reimburse the marital estate for those expenses. We can make him pay back every penny he spent on her. How much are we talking about? I asked. Patricia smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of a predator who'd just spotted wounded prey. Based on what you've shown me, at least $150,000 in provable dissipation. Possibly more. Plus, we'll get half of all the assets he tried to hide. Plus, we're going to ask the court to award you a larger share of the marital estate because of his fraud and deception. We're going to take him apart piece by piece, Rebecca. By the time we're done, Marcus is going to wish he'd been honest with you from the start. We filed for divorce the next day. Patricia prepared the petition personally, and it was 23 pages long. We listed every account I'd discovered. We attached summaries of my financial investigation as exhibits. We documented the affair, the hidden assets, the diverted business funds, everything. And we asked for temporary orders requiring Marcus to maintain the status quo, meaning he couldn't transfer any more money or hide any more assets. The process server delivered the divorce papers to Marcus at his office on a Tuesday afternoon. Patricia had specifically chosen that timing because she wanted him to be served in front of his business associates. She wanted him humiliated. I wasn't there, but I heard about it later from the process server. Apparently, Marcus turned white as a sheet when he read the first page of the petition. Then he started yelling, saying it was all lies, saying I was crazy, that I'd fabricated everything. But his hands were shaking. He knew he'd been caught. Marcus came home that night. I was ready for him. I'd packed a bag and made arrangements to stay with my best friend Amanda for a few weeks. I wasn't going to spend another night under the same roof with him. When he walked in, his face was purple with rage. What the hell is this, Rebecca? He threw the divorce papers on the kitchen counter. Where did you get this information? You had no right to snoop through my private accounts. They're not private accounts, Marcus, I said calmly. They're marital assets that you tried to hide. And I had every right to investigate because you've been stealing from me for years. I haven't stolen anything, I earned that money. My business, my commissions. Your business that was started with a $100,000 loan from my parents, I reminded him. Your business that you built while I supported us with my salary during the lean years. Your commissions that you earned while married to me, which makes them marital property. And let's not forget the apartment you're renting for Sienna. Or the $12,000 in jewelry you bought her. Or the trips to Hawaii and Miami that I was apparently too boring to be invited on. Marcus's face went from purple to gray. You know about Sienna? I've known for 8 months, Marcus. I've known everything. I listened to you on the phone that night in March, talking about how you were going to manipulate the divorce, how you were going to hide assets, how you thought I was too stupid to notice. But I noticed. I documented everything, every transaction, every lie, every penny you stole. He tried to change tactics, his voice going soft, pleading. Rebecca, baby, listen. We can work this out. It was a mistake. I'll end things with Sienna. We can go to counseling. We can save our marriage. You don't want to throw away 7 years over a mistake. I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt nothing. No love, no anger. Just a cold, clear assessment of a man who'd revealed his true character. It wasn't a mistake, Marcus. It was a choice. Hundreds of choices. Every time you diverted money from your business. Every time you opened a secret account. Every time you lied to my face and told me you were working late. You made those choices. And now you're going to live with the consequences. You're going to regret this, he said, his voice turning nasty again. I have a good lawyer. He says we can prove you fabricated evidence, that you're just a vindictive wife making up stories. He says courts don't care about affairs. They just split assets 50-50. You're not getting my business. You're not getting my investments. You're getting nothing. We'll see about that, I said. I picked up my bag and walked toward the door. My attorney filed for temporary orders. There's a hearing in 2 weeks. Until then, you're not allowed to transfer any assets or make any major purchases. If you violate that order, you'll be held in contempt of court. Oh, and I'd start looking for a new place to live. This house is in both our names, but I'm asking for exclusive occupancy. Enjoy your night, Marcus. I walked out and didn't look back. The next 2 weeks were the hardest of my life. Not because I missed Marcus, I didn't. But because the reality of my situation was sinking in. My marriage was over. The life I thought I was building was a lie. The man I'd loved, or thought I'd loved, was a stranger. I spent a lot of time crying on Amanda's couch, eating ice cream, watching terrible reality TV, trying to process the betrayal. But I also spent a lot of time with Patricia, preparing for the temporary orders hearing. We rehearsed my testimony. We organized exhibits. We prepared financial summaries and charts that would make it crystal clear to the judge what Marcus had done. Patricia kept telling me the same thing over and over. Stay calm. Stay factual. Let the evidence speak for itself. Don't get emotional. Don't get angry. Just present the facts like you're testifying in any other fraud case. You're a professional. Act like it. The temporary orders hearing was in family court, a depressing building with fluorescent lights and worn linoleum floors. Marcus was there with his attorney, a slick-looking man named Richard Blackwell, who wore an expensive suit and a smug expression. Marcus had brought Sienna with him. She was sitting in the gallery, 20-something and pretty in that Instagram filter kind of way, with long blonde hair and too much makeup. She kept touching the diamond necklace around her neck, the necklace Marcus had bought her with marital funds, with my money. When I walked in, Marcus leaned over and whispered something to Sienna. She laughed and looked at me with undisguised contempt, like I was nothing, like I was the obstacle standing between her and her happy ending. I felt a flash of anger, hot and bright, but I pushed it down. I sat next to Patricia, opened my binder of evidence, and waited for the judge. The judge was a woman in her 60s named Judge Anderson. She had reading glasses on a chain and looked like somebody's grandmother. But Patricia had warned me not to be fooled. Judge Anderson had a reputation for being sharp as a tack and intolerant of nonsense. She hated liars, and she hated people who tried to cheat the system. "All right," Judge Anderson said, looking at both attorneys over her glasses. "This is a hearing on temporary orders in the matter of Chen versus Chen. I've read the pleadings. I've read the petition and the response. Mrs. Morrison, you're asking for quite a lot. Exclusive occupancy of the marital residence, temporary spousal support, an injunction preventing any transfer of assets, and you're alleging significant marital misconduct. That's a serious allegation. What evidence do you have?" Patricia stood up. "Your Honor, my client has prepared extensive documentation of the respondent's financial misconduct. With the court's permission, I'd like to call Mrs. Chen to testify." "Proceed." I stood up, walked to the witness box, and swore to tell the truth. Then I began to tell my story. I explained how I'd overheard Marcus on the phone discussing his plan to hide assets. I explained how I'd started investigating. I walked the judge through the secret credit cards, the diverted business funds, the hidden accounts, the apartment he was renting for his mistress. As I testified, Patricia displayed exhibits on a screen, bank statements with highlighted charges, corporate documents showing the diversion of funds, photographs I'd taken of the apartment building where Sienna lived, credit card bills showing purchases at Tiffany's. The evidence was overwhelming. It was undeniable. Judge Anderson leaned forward in her chair, studying the documents with narrowed eyes. She looked at Marcus, who was sweating and whispering frantically to his attorney. Then she looked back at me. "Mrs. Chen," the judge said, "you're a forensic accountant by profession?" "Yes, Your Honor." "And you conducted this investigation yourself?" "Yes, Your Honor. I used the same methods I use in my professional work. I traced financial transactions. I documented patterns of spending. I identified hidden assets. Everything I've presented is supported by bank statements, credit card bills, and corporate records." "This is very impressive work," Judge Anderson said. "Very thorough. Mr. Blackwell, does your client have a response to these allegations?" Richard Blackwell stood up, buttoning his suit jacket. "Your Honor, my client denies any wrongdoing. The accounts in question are his personal business accounts. As a business owner, he's entitled to maintain separate accounts for business purposes. The apartment was a temporary corporate rental for out-of-town clients. The credit cards were used for legitimate business expenses." "Business expenses at Tiffany's?" Judge Anderson asked dryly. $12,000 in jewelry is a business expense? "My client occasionally purchases gifts for high-value clients," Blackwell said smoothly. "It's a common practice in commercial real estate." "And the woman sitting in my courtroom wearing one of those gifts, is she a high-value client?" Blackwell hesitated. Marcus leaned over and whispered something urgent. Blackwell nodded. "Your Honor, my client admits that he has been in a relationship with another woman. However, adultery is not relevant to the division of assets in this state. The court's job is simply to divide the marital estate fairly. My client is willing to agree to a 50-50 split of all marital assets." 50-50? Patricia stood up. "Your Honor, the respondent has dissipated over $150,000 in marital funds on his extramarital affair. He's diverted business income into secret accounts. He's hidden assets and lied on financial disclosures. A 50-50 split would reward his fraud. We're asking the court to require him to reimburse the marital estate for dissipated funds and to award my client a larger share to compensate for his misconduct." Judge Anderson nodded slowly. "I tend to agree, Mrs. Morrison. Mr. Blackwell, your client's behavior is appalling. Frankly, I'm considering whether to refer this matter to the district attorney for possible criminal charges. Diverting corporate funds into personal accounts and failing to report it on tax returns could constitute fraud." Marcus went pale. Blackwell jumped up. "Your Honor, that's not necessary. We're willing to negotiate. Perhaps we can reach a settlement. We're not here to settle, Mr. Blackwell. We're here for temporary orders. And based on what I've seen, I'm granting Mrs. Chen's requests. Exclusive occupancy of the marital residence is granted. Mr. Chen, you have 48 hours to remove your personal belongings and vacate the property. All joint accounts are frozen pending final divorce decree. Neither party may transfer assets or make major purchases. Mr. Chen, you are specifically ordered not to divert any more business income. If you violate this order, I will hold you in contempt, and you will go to jail. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor, Marcus mumbled. Good. We'll reconvene in 60 days for a full hearing on the division of assets. In the meantime, Mrs. Chen, continue documenting everything. Mr. Blackwell, I suggest your client come to the next hearing prepared to be honest. Because if I find out he's lied to this court, the consequences will be severe. We're adjourned. The gavel came down. It sounded like a gunshot. I walked out of the courtroom feeling like I was floating. Patricia squeezed my arm. That was perfect, she said. You were calm, you were professional, and the judge believed every word. Marcus is in serious trouble. In the hallway, Marcus caught up with me. Sienna was right behind him, looking uncertain now. The reality of the situation was probably sinking in. Marcus wasn't the rich, successful businessman she'd thought he was. He was a fraud who was about to lose everything. Rebecca, please, Marcus said. Can we talk? Just you and me? I have nothing to say to you, Marcus. Talk to my attorney. You're destroying me. Do you realize that? My business, my reputation, everything. Is this what you want? To ruin me? I stopped and looked him directly in the eye. No, Marcus. You ruined yourself. I'm just making sure you don't take me down with you. There's a difference. I walked away. Behind me, I heard Sienna say something sharp to Marcus, her voice rising. They were fighting. Let them fight. That was their problem now, not mine. Over the next 60 days, I continued my investigation. I found even more hidden assets. A safety deposit box Marcus had never mentioned, containing almost $30,000 in cash. Another investment account at Fidelity with stock holdings worth over $80,000. A vintage car he'd bought and kept in a storage unit never told me about, worth about $45,000. Every time I found something new, I documented it and sent it to Patricia. Every time, Patricia amended our divorce filings to include the new discovery. Marcus's attorney tried to fight back, filed motions claiming I was harassing my husband, invading his privacy, making false accusations. But every accusation I made was backed up by documentation. Bank statements don't lie. Corporate records don't lie. Judges don't like liars. The final divorce hearing was scheduled for early June. By that time, I'd uncovered over $600,000 in hidden assets. $600,000 that Marcus had squirreled away in secret accounts, trying to cheat me out of what was rightfully half mine. The courtroom was more crowded this time. My parents were there, sitting behind me for support. They were devastated when they found out what Marcus had done. My father wanted to go to Marcus's office and confront him physically. My mother just cried. They'd loved Marcus like a son. He'd betrayed them too. Amanda was there. Jennifer from work was there. Several of my colleagues were there because they wanted to see the case they'd been hearing about for months. On Marcus's side, the gallery was nearly empty. Just Sienna, looking sullen and bored, and Marcus's mother, who kept shooting me dirty looks like this was somehow my fault. Judge Anderson called the court to order. All right, we're here for the final hearing on the division of marital assets. This has been an unusual case, to say the least. Mrs. Morrison, I've reviewed all your amended filings and supplemental evidence. You've been busy. Yes, Your Honor. My client has continued to uncover hidden assets. The total marital estate is now valued at approximately $1.2 million, including the home, retirement accounts, the business, investment accounts, and personal property. And Mr. Blackwell, what is your client's position? Blackwell stood up. He looked tired. This case had clearly been more work than he'd bargained for. Your Honor, my client acknowledges that certain assets were not initially disclosed. However, these were oversights, not intentional omissions. We ask the court to divide all assets 50-50 as is standard in divorce cases in this state. Oversights? Judge Anderson looked incredulous. Mr. Blackwell, your client opened secret bank accounts, diverted business income, lied on financial disclosures, and spent over $150,000 on an extramarital affair. Those aren't oversights. That's fraud. And in this state, I have discretion to make an unequal distribution when one spouse has dissipated marital assets or committed financial misconduct. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. She put on her reading glasses and picked up a document. I'm awarding the marital residence to Mrs. Chen. The house is worth approximately $400,000 with $200,000 remaining on the mortgage. Mr. Chen's interest in the home is therefore $100,000. However, that amount will be offset by the dissipation of marital funds. I'm ordering Mr. Chen to reimburse the marital estate for the $150,000 he spent on his affair. Rent for the mistress's apartment. Jewelry, travel, entertainment, all of it. That money will be paid to Mrs. Chen. Marcus jumped up. That's not fair. I can't pay that. I don't have that kind of cash. Sit down, Mr. Chen, Judge Anderson said sternly. You should have thought about that before you spent marital funds on your girlfriend. You'll liquidate assets to pay it. Sell your car, drain your retirement accounts. I don't care, but you will pay it. Regarding the business, Chen and Associates. Mrs. Chen contributed to the founding of this business through the loan from her parents. She also supported the household during the early years while the business was getting established. I'm awarding her 40% ownership of the business. She can either retain that ownership and participate in profits, or Mr. Chen can buy her out at fair market value within 60 days. Marcus looked like he might vomit. 40% of his business. His precious business that he'd tried so hard to hide. The investment accounts. Mr. Chen secretly transferred nearly $200,000 into hidden investment accounts. Those accounts will be liquidated and the funds divided. However, due to Mr. Chen's misconduct, the division will be 60-40 in Mrs. Chen's favor. Retirement accounts will be divided equally. Personal property, furniture, vehicles will be divided equally with each party submitting a list of what they want. If there are disputes, you'll work it out, or I'll order everything sold and the proceeds divided. Spousal support. Mrs. Chen is a professional with a good income. She doesn't need ongoing support. However, I'm ordering Mr. Chen to pay her $25,000 as a lump sum to cover her attorney's fees and costs, which I'm sure have been substantial given the amount of discovery required in this case. Judge Anderson set down her papers and looked at Marcus over her glasses. Mr. Chen, you tried to cheat your wife. You lied to this court. You hid assets and diverted income. You spent marital funds on an extramarital affair and thought you'd get away with it. But you didn't. And now you're paying the price. Consider yourself lucky I'm not referring this case to the district attorney for criminal prosecution. You're dismissed. The gavel came down one final time. It was over. I'd won. Patricia hugged me. My parents hugged me. Amanda was crying happy tears. Around me, my colleagues were congratulating me, telling me how proud they were. I felt numb. Not happy exactly. Not triumphant. Just tired. So incredibly tired. But I'd done it. I'd fought back. I'd used my skills, my knowledge, my determination to protect myself. I'd made sure Marcus didn't get away with his fraud. I'd made sure he paid for what he'd done. Marcus and Sienna left the courtroom separately. They'd broken up 2 weeks earlier. Apparently, when Marcus told Sienna he was going to lose most of his assets in the divorce, she suddenly decided he wasn't such great boyfriend material after all. She'd actually posted on Instagram about finding her true king, with a photo of her with a new guy. Marcus saw it and showed up at her apartment drunk, yelling. She called the police. He'd spent a night in jail for disturbing the peace. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Marcus moved into a cheap apartment, was selling off assets to pay me the court-ordered amounts. His business was struggling because his reputation in the commercial real estate community was destroyed. Word had gotten around about the fraud, the hidden accounts, the affair. Nobody wanted to work with him. His own mother barely spoke to him because she was humiliated by what he'd done. As for me, I moved back into my house. Our house. My house, now. I repainted the bedroom, bought new furniture, made it mine. I threw myself into my work, took on bigger cases, built my reputation as one of the best forensic accountants in the city. I thought about dating, but decided I wasn't ready. Maybe I wouldn't be ready for a long time. That was okay. I had my career. I had my friends. I had my parents. I had my dignity. I had my house. I had my life back. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I got a letter from Marcus. My attorney told me I didn't have to read it, but curiosity got the better of me. The letter was short. Rebecca, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know what I did was unforgivable. I was selfish and cruel and stupid. I threw away the best thing in my life for something meaningless. You were always too good for me. You were always smarter than me. I just didn't want to admit it. I hope you're happy. I hope you find someone who deserves you, someone who appreciates how incredible you are. I'm sorry, Marcus. I read the letter twice. Then I put it in a drawer and forgot about it. Sorry wasn't enough. Sorry didn't undo the betrayal. Sorry didn't give me back the years I'd wasted on him. Sorry didn't erase the pain. But I was okay with that. I didn't need his apology. I didn't need his regret. I didn't need anything from him. I'd already taken what was mine. Now, a year later, I'm sitting in my home office, the office Marcus used to call my number dungeon. I'm working on a case, helping a woman trace hidden assets in her divorce. Her husband thinks he's smarter than her. He thinks he can hide money in offshore accounts and secret investments. He has no idea what he's dealing with. Because she hired me. And I know every trick. I've seen every scheme. I've uncovered every lie. And I'm very, very good at what I do. My phone rings. It's Patricia Morrison. Rebecca, I have a client who needs your expertise. High asset divorce, husband hiding money, very complex. Are you available? Always, I tell her. Send me the details. I hang up and turn back to my spreadsheet. The numbers line up neatly, telling their story. Truth in columns and rows. Justice in debits and credits. This is what I do. I find what's hidden. I expose what's been concealed. I make sure that people who try to cheat don't get away with it. Marcus thought he could take everything from me. He thought I was too stupid, too trusting, too focused on my spreadsheets to notice what he was doing. He was wrong, and he paid for that mistake. Some people might say I was too harsh, that I should have been more forgiving, that I should have given him another chance, but those people don't understand. It wasn't about revenge. It was about justice. It was about making sure that when someone tries to destroy you, when someone tries to steal from you, when someone betrays your trust in the worst possible way, they don't get to walk away unscathed. They don't get to keep what they stole. They don't get to win. Marcus said he was going to take everything from me. Instead, I made sure he lost everything he tried to hide. That's the difference between talking and doing. Between threatening and following through. Between thinking you're smart and actually being smart. I'm Rebecca Chen. I'm a forensic accountant. I've spent years helping other people find hidden money, expose fraud, and get justice. But the most important case I ever worked was my own. And I won. If you're in a situation like I was, if someone you trust is betraying you, stealing from you, lying to you, I want you to know something. You're not powerless. You're not helpless. You have options. Document everything. Save every statement. Screenshot every message. Build your case like you're preparing for trial. Because you might be. Find people who will help you. Attorneys, accountants, investigators. People who know how to fight back. And when the time comes, when you're sitting in that courtroom facing the person who tried to destroy you, remember this: the truth is powerful, evidence is undeniable, and justice, real justice, is worth fighting for. Marcus walked into that courthouse thinking he was going to take everything from me. He walked out, having lost everything he tried to hide. That's not revenge. That's just math. And math doesn't lie.